That's when the Serbs started singing their nationalist songs. I remember spending a night together with my neighbor, unable to sleep, scared, because they were singing Chetnik, really Chetnik songs.
War was in the air. The Serbs were positioned on the hills and our movements were being watched. We were paralyzed by fear.
One day when we were on our way to work, we noticed the checkpoints. They were guarded by Serbs armed with guns. When my husband and I were returning home, an armed Chetnik cocked his gun at us. He put a gun at our throats. That's a detail you never forget.
I thought that it was going to pass, that it was simply a turbulence, and everything will calm down, people will see sense. I could never have anticipated what was going to happen. Never. In a million years. Never, ever.
That day, the Serb army attacked, and the shots were coming from every direction. A woman from our village was killed. Her child fell out of her arms.
It became clear to everyone that this was war and that they had to save their skins. But where could they go?
All of a sudden, one morning turning into uniformed strangers.
Our next-door neighbor came. My father-in-law had practically raised him. He wasn't some stranger. He had a million cups of coffee and lunches at my father-in-law's. He came to the door and kicked the door in. He was armed to the teeth. He gathered all of us into the kitchen, and then he took a knife and cut off my clothes. He raped me and beat me in front of my father-in-law and mother-in-law. When he finished molesting me, he loaded a bullet in the chamber of his gun and shot my father-in-law, killing him instantly. Then he killed my mother-in-law. He had a gun in one hand and he was holding me by the hair in the other. He turned around to shoot at my sister-in-law. I gathered my courage. I suppose that's what God wanted. I took advantage of his lack of attention and, thank God, I struggled out of his grasp and escaped. I hid in a pumpkin patch that was 60 feet from the house. He couldn't find me, so he set fire to the house. I was 60 feet away, and I saw everything.
By the time the trial was over, a total of 63 witnesses from both sides would take the stand, producing more than 6,000 pages of testimony.
All right, Fayefuleve.
On a late winter's day in 2001, a packed courtroom sat in anticipation.
Today, the trial chamber delivers its judgment in the proceedings against the accused.
There's always a question about what the judges are going to do. So I don't think there was ever a moment where I felt like, yeah, I got him. I think it was more like, I've done the best I can. I really hope you rule in my favor.
Dragojev Kunaras, you were charged with rape and torture, both as a violation of the laws and customs of war and a crime against humanity.
We got a heads up from the translation unit. They called and said, you're going to be pleased. And that's all she would say. And I was like, tell me more, tell me more. It's like, no, I've said too much, but I pretend I never called you.
There was a landmark ruling by the War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague today. 3 former Bosnian Serb commanders have been convicted of raping and torturing Muslim girls and women during the Bosnian War.
Dragoljub Kunarac was sentenced to 28 years.
Radomir Kovac was sentenced to 20 years in prison.
Zoran Vukovic, 12 years.
It's the first time that sexual assault has been treated as a crime against humanity.
And it's the first time it's used the charge of wartime sexual enslavement.
This conviction established sexual enslavement as a crime against humanity.
The trial was distressing for lawyers and witnesses, but may pave the way for justice for other victims.
These women did it. They did it. For me, they are heroes. I'm so in awe of their fight, of their having done what they did, of facing up to their demons and, you know, just refusing to back down from it. Yeah, it's, for me, it always is still about them.
It was about the truth. It was about all of us knowing what happened at their expense. Let's not forget this. This truth was not said in the privacy of the psychiatrist's office or, you know, a session where they could really know that nobody else will know. It was said in the public forum. We can try to pretend to believe that their identities were protected. Yes, they were protected from somebody who had no idea. But from their communities, everybody knew who testified. It was a pure act of heroism to me. And especially without any guarantee what the result will be in the end.
While the Foča verdicts were celebrated as a legal watershed,